Hey everyone, welcome back to AI.Divine Insights. Today, we're going deep, like really deep.
All right, get ready for some adventure because today we're diving into a story that's got it all. Danger, drama, a little bit of divine intervention. We're talking about the Apostle Paul's journey to Rome.
From the book of Acts, chapter 27 to be exact.
Right, Acts 27. And you might be thinking, a trip to Rome. What's so perilous about that? But trust me, this is no pleasure cruise.
Not at all. Remember, Paul's a prisoner at this point, under Roman guard, headed to who knows what awaits him in the capital of the empire.
So, yeah, not exactly a vacation. And it's not just Paul and the guards, right? I mean, there must have been a whole bunch of other people on this voyage, right?
Oh, absolutely. You'd have sailors, maybe some merchants, other prisoners, a real mix of folks all thrown together on this journey.
And where does this perilous journey begin?
Well, they set sail from Adramyttium.
Adramyttium, that's a port city in Asia Minor, right?
You got it. And their plan, at least initially, was to stick close to the coastline. Probably the safer, more predictable route back then.
Makes sense. Less chance of getting lost or caught in a storm out in the open sea.
Exactly. And there's one other interesting character we should mention, Aristarchus.
Aristarchus, remind me, who's he again?
He's a Macedonian from Thessalonica, loyal companion of Paul. Decided to stick with him through all this.
So even in chains, Paul's got a friend by his side. That's got to count for something.
Definitely. And speaking of interesting companions, the centurion in charge of Paul, Julius, he's not your typical Roman guard.
Oh, how so?
Well, at one point he actually lets Paul go ashore to visit some friends in Sidon.
Really? I mean, for a prisoner, that's pretty unusual, isn't it?
Very unusual. Makes you wonder what Julius thought of Paul. Maybe he saw something in him, some kind of integrity or...
Yeah, maybe some spark that made him think, this guy's not your average prisoner.
Exactly. And it just adds another layer to the story, right? These little moments of humanity, these glimpses into the relationships between these people. It's not just about events. It's about the people living through them.
Right. It makes it all so much more real, so much more relatable, even though it happened centuries ago.
And that's what makes this story so captivating.
So they set off from Adramyttium, hugging the coastline, everything going smoothly.
Well, for a while, maybe.
Yeah.
But then the Mediterranean weather does what it does best. Throws a wrench in the works.
Uh-oh. I'm guessing this is where the perilous part really kicks in.
You could say that. You got to remember, these guys didn't have GPS, weather forecasts, any of that. They were at the mercy of the wind and the waves.
I can't even imagine. Relying on the stars and a good breeze to get you where you need to go. Talk about pressure.
Seriously. And when those winds turned against them, well, they had to adapt.
So what did they do? Turn back?
Not exactly. They ended up changing ships in Myra, in Lycia. Boarded this big Alexandrian grain ship.
A grain ship, huh?
Yeah.
I bet that wasn't the most luxurious ride.
Probably not. But it was headed for Italy, so...
So they're on this giant grain ship, probably clammed in with cargo and other passengers, hoping for the best.
And hoping those winds cooperate a little better this time.
And did they?
And not so much. They had a real tough time just reaching Cnidus.
Cnidus?
It's on the southwestern tip of Asia Minor. And from there, they decide to play it safe, sail along the sheltered side of Crete.
Okay, so kind of sticking to that original plan of hugging the coast.
Right. And they eventually make it to a harbor called Fair Havens. But here's the thing, this was right after the fast.
The fast? What, like a religious fast?
Exactly. We're talking about the Day of Atonement, a big Jewish holy day.
Okay, and why is that significant?
Well, for ancient sailors, the Day of Atonement kind of marked the end of the safe sailing season.
Oh, I see.
You really didn't want to be caught out on the open sea in the Mediterranean winter. Storms,
Yeah, makes sense.
So arriving in Fair Havens right after the Day of Atonement, that probably had people on edge.
And that's where Paul comes in with his warning, right?
Exactly. He starts telling everyone, look, if we keep going, we're going to hit a storm. We could lose the ship. We could lose lives.
Whoa. That's a pretty dire prediction.
It is. But, some people just don't like to listen.
So did they ignore him?
Well, the centurion, he decides to listen to the ship's owner and the helmsman.
Yeah.
Experienced sailors.
Figures. Experience over some premonition, right?
Pretty much. They figured they could make it to Phoenix, another harbor on Crete, and wait out the winter there.
So they think they can beat the odds, but Paul's not so sure.
Not at all. And you know what? He was right to be worried.
I have a bad feeling about this. So they think they can outsmart the Mediterranean winter. Bold move.
Very bold. And at first, it almost seems like they might get away with it.
Oh, Really?
Yeah, they set sail from Fair Havens with a nice south wind pushing them along.
Ah, so they're feeling pretty good about their decision.
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about the Mediterranean, it can change in an instant.
And did it ever?
Oh, yeah. Out of nowhere, this vicious northeasterly wind slams into them.
They called it Euroclydon, right?
That's the one. And let me tell you, this wasn't just a strong breeze. Euroclydon was notorious, even back then.
What, like hurricane force winds?
At least. And sudden, too. One minute you're sailing along, the next you're fighting for your life.
I bet those experienced sailors, the ones the Centurion trusted, were having second thoughts at that point.
I'd say so. The ship would have been tossed around like a toy boat in a bathtub. Waves crashing over the deck, wind howling through the rigging.
Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And remember, no life jackets, no mayday calls. They were completely at the mercy of that storm.
So what did they do? Just try to ride it out?
Well, they did what they could. First, they tried to find some shelter near a small island called Clauda.
Clauda.
It's just south of Crete. Not much of an island, but it might have offered a little break from the full force of the wind.
Yeah.
Enough to let them secure the skiff. That's the small boat they usually towed behind the ship.
I can't imagine trying to do that in the middle of a storm like that. Must have been like wrestling an alligator.
No kidding. But they managed it. And then they did something pretty drastic. They undergirded the ship.
I know what now.
Undergirded. Basically, they used ropes or chains to try to strengthen the hull, keep it from breaking apart.
Ah, like a giant bandage, trying to hold the whole ship together.
Exactly. But even with all that, the storm just raged on. Days turned into nights. No sun, no stars, just wind and waves and that constant fear that the ship wouldn't hold.
I bet they were starting to regret not listening to Paul's warning.
Probably.
Uh,
And they were running out of options. At one point, they even started throwing cargo overboard.
Desperate times.
For sure. Imagine having to sacrifice all your possessions, all your goods, just for a chance to stay afloat.
Heartbreaking. So they're in this desperate situation, hope fading fast. Where's Paul in all this?
Well, after fasting for a while, probably praying right along with everyone else, he decides to address the crew and passengers.
What does he say? I told you so.
Actually, no. He starts by reminding them of his warning, yeah. But it's not accusatory, it's more like, look, we're here now, this is our reality.
So he's not rubbing it in?
Not at all.
Huh.
And then he does something incredible. He tells them that everyone's going to survive.
Wait, what? In the middle of this raging storm, he's saying they'll all be okay.
Yeah. He says the ship's can be lost, but everyone on board will live.
And how does he know that?
He tells them he had a vision. An angel of God appeared to him during the night, promising that everyone would make it.
Wow. So in the darkest moment, a glimmer of hope. And not just any hope, but hope based on divine intervention.
Exactly. And you got to remember, back then, visions like that were not something you took lightly.
I bet that got everyone's attention. So did they believe him? So they're clinging to this hope, this promise from an angel, but they're still in the middle of a raging storm. What happens next?
Well, picture this. It's a 14th night of the storm. These people are exhausted, terrified, probably haven't eaten a decent meal in days.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
And then, through all the chaos, the sailors start to sense something different.
What? What do they sense?
Land.
Oh, wow.
They can feel it. Maybe a change in the waves. Maybe even the smell of earth carried on the wind. They start taking soundings, measuring the depth. And sure enough, they're getting close.
That must have been a mixed blessing. Relief, but also,
Terror.
yeah. I mean, land in a storm is just as dangerous as open sea, right?
Absolutely. They could be dashed against the rocks. And it's still dark. They're basically navigating blind.
So what did they do?
They drop anchor, try to ride out the rest of the storm until daybreak.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
But here's where things get really interesting. Some of the sailors see an opportunity.
An opportunity? For what?
Save themselves. They try to sneak off in the skiff.
No way. They're going to abandon everyone else.
Yep. They pretended they were going to secure anchors from the bow, but Paul saw right through them.
Good thing he did.
He tells the centurion, look, if those sailors leave, we're all doomed. They needed their expertise to get the ship to safety.
So the Centurion trusts Paul again.
He does. He orders the soldiers to cut the skiff loose. No escape.
Wow. That's a bold move, putting his faith in a prisoner.
It is. Shows you how much Paul had earned his respect.
So the sailors are stuck on board. They wait for daybreak. What happens when the storm finally breaks?
Well, they get their first glimpse of land. And Paul, he does something really unexpected.
What's that?
He urges everyone to eat. tells them they need their strength for what's coming next.
He's thinking ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then he takes some bread, gives thanks to God in front of everyone, breaks it, and shares it.
A real moment of unity, huh?
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And then, with renewed energy and purpose, they made their final push for land.
Do they make it?
They do.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. The ship runs aground on a reef, the front gets stuck, the back starts getting smashed by waves. It's complete chaos.
Oh, man. Even though we know they survive, it's still tense.
Totally. And there's one more close call. The soldiers. They panic.
Mhm.
They think the prisoners are going to escape in all the commotion.
Uh-oh.
They actually consider killing all the prisoners just to prevent them from getting away.
That's dark.
It is. But the centurion, he steps in. He knows Paul is too important. He stops the soldiers, saves Paul's life.
Wow. The prisoner becomes the protected.
Exactly. And finally, against all odds, everyone makes it to shore. Some swim, some cling to pieces of the ship, some are helped by others. 276 people saved from the storm.
Just like the angel promised.
Just like the angel promised.
What a story. Shipwreck, mutiny, divine intervention. It's got it all.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? About faith, resilience, the choices we make.
It makes you wonder how you'd react in a situation like that. Would you have Paul's courage, his faith?
Big questions. And maybe that's the point. This story isn't just about a dangerous sea voyage. It's about the storms we all face in life and how we find the strength to get through them.
So the next time you're facing your own storm, remember Paul's journey. Remember the power of hope, even in the darkest of times. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive. We'll see you next time. Also, please like and subscribe to AI.DivineInsights for daily podcast episodes.
See you next time.